1, 2, check, check. Sunday morning on the 7th. Check, check. 1, 2. Check, check. 25:68. 5:07 in the morning. Early edition. Outcast number 4. Anyway, I can't wait till you guys do flood the chat because I'm ready to drop some bombs today. I'm ready to drop some bombs. Got a lot of stuff that, well, not a lot, but the things that I want to talk about might take a little bit of time to say them. So to get through the story, because one of them is an actual story, and the other one's just an opinion, which I don't mind giving every now and then. We are here. It's Sunday the 7th, year 2568, in northern Thailand, with our thoughts. And it's going to be a while before the sun comes up. I guess that I had a real problem sleeping last night for some reason. I actually, I don't know if I discussed this with you guys earlier, but well, I know I discussed it with us. I discussed it on here, um, about like taking Zoloft as sort of like a mood stabilizer, stuff like that, and the way like the whole story, how that happened, and everything like that. So like that's like on Outcast episode. I don't know. It's a while ago, maybe a week ago. But the long and short of the story is that I I was in New York, and I'd just come back to New York. I'd been living in Thailand for over 25 years. I came back to New York, and I was like trying to like figure things out. I was kind of depressed and everything, and I was like trying to figure out some sort of a way to get out of the predicament that I was in. Anyway, so they basically don't do any kind of psychiatric work or anything like that. I mean, yeah, they put me up in what they call the psych ward because I just all what I had said was that I just didn't see what the reason for my existence was. It didn't mean that I wanted to kill myself. It didn't mean that I wanted to hurt anybody or anything like that. What it meant, what I meant was, I don't see the point of people living their existences in this hamster on a wheel. So that's what somebody used to define it. The hamster on a wheel type of reality. And I think, that, I was just not, I'm not, that's just not something that I want to do. I've never done that. My whole life from a very early age has been dedicated to experience. So while I have made some money in my life, at times I had plenty of money, times I've had absolutely no money, you know, all good, whatever. But, you keep the most important things in mind, and that is the ability to walk, think, and have some degree of good health and have a healthy mind, which helps you to be happy, which is going to lead into to a story that I heard at a time that I really needed some inspiration. So at one point in my life, hold on a second, I'm gonna do this even though I might get a little slack for it, but fuck it, I gotta do it. Choice. Hope nobody says nothing. They do. So be it. I'll end up fucking peeing on myself. In the meantime, I gotta do it. I had coffee. And, coffee is like filled with strychnine. Strychnine um, closes up your renal. I guess that's what they call it. Your renal, your veins, your arteries, and all your tubes and stuff like that you have in your body, and can make you either pee or need, go number two, or have a heart attack, or whatever, those kind of things. Unfortunately for me right now, I've never done this in this country, but I had to this time, and I did it, and it's early enough. Nobody's around, and even if there were anybody around, they probably wouldn't say, wouldn't be humanistic about it. Anyway, so yeah, so I didn't get that much sleep last night. Because I had been withdrawing from this pharmaceutical drug that they prescribe basically everybody who goes into these places, and they call them psych wards. But they're not. I mean, like they're not like psych wards like with people like, I mean, there are some people there who have like, uh, what do you call it? Paranoid schizophrenia and suicidal tendencies and all sorts of things. There are people there who are like that. But the place that I went, the majority of them were just people who are gaming the system. Basically, they didn't want to work. There's no point in working for such like a minimalist amount of money that you could barely survive on. And so a lot of them just run this game where every month or two they just check into the mental hospital, and they get the notes written down so they keep getting their SSI benefits. And then a lot of them, and then there's another lot of them that who are getting their SSI benefits who check in at like sort of like the middle or like the last week of the month because they ran out of money and they just want to check in and get some food, bed, shelter, and stuff like that. And then when they by the time they check out, the check has arrived into their bank, and they can go proceed on doing whatever they want to do. And I'll make it very clear: I don't hold anything against these people whatsoever, in the slightest. I don't blame them for. I mean, I commiserate with them because the way society is set up, there is nothing there for them where they could possibly have a good life. So anyway, when I was there, because I was questioning, basically a philosophical question, they put me there. They're like, "Oh, this guy wants to kill himself and stuff like that." And I was like, "No, I don't want to kill myself. What I am doing though is I'm just wondering why am I in existence?" All right. And so they put me on Zoloft, which actually helped for a real long time. I took it for a long time because I did have, sort of depressive thoughts. I'd been away from my wife for a number of years, 4 or 5 years, and I'd been working. I felt like, I was working 12 to 16 hours a day, and I just wasn't making any money. I was able to send money back home, but there was no money for, to do anything, you know, just except pay the phone bill, pay the mortgage on the car, send money to the wife, and maybe do your laundry and get a little bit of food, something like that. That's all. That's all. And if you think about it, like the dichotomy of it all is that back in the 1950s, a working man, a man working in a gas station was able to make enough money to support a family of four without his wife working. That's how things changed over time, and when this change comes over this period of time and stuff like that, a lot of people aren't alive to remember what it was like, and the ones that are alive who remember what it's like, they're all in their 70s and 80s, and they're getting their retirement checks, and they made it out. They made it out alive. But for the rest of us who have to supposedly, hopefully, live a little bit longer, that story does not really apply to us in many ways, because you cannot work a 40-hour-a-week job, buy a house with a white picket fence, and support a family of four. Not happening at all. No way, no chance, no way. And I'd even go so far as to say, in modern times, that a single man working 12 to 16 hours a day, not only can he not feed and provide for a family of four, he could barely take care of himself. That's a fact, in my opinion. Anyway, so that's sort of my take on the situation, you know, as it was, you know. But anyway, I was down and out. I was depressed at one point. I just give you a little backstory about myself. My first wife died of breast cancer. My father was murdered. My mother committed suicide. My best friend died of cirrhosis. And let me see, anything else in there? Those are personal things. You know what I mean? Oh yeah, my brother had betrayed me, lied to me, forged documents and stuff like that. Something I thought that would never happen. In a million years, I never thought that a brother would betray his own brother. It just didn't occur to me, but that did happen. And it ultimately led to the murder of my father. Well, he's not the one who murdered my father. He was just so complicit, I guess is the word, I suppose. Anyway, so and mentally I was just, I was like drained. I was like, man, this really sucks. you know. I mean, first wife dies of breast cancer, father's murdered, mother commits suicide, brother betrays me, and my best friend dies of cirrhosis. Terrible thing to see, right? Watch somebody die of cirrhosis. Horrible. And I'm like, oh, this is, life sucks. This is a terrible thing, How could I possibly ever be happy or anything like that? Knowing that, that the me, I had been through this. Well, apparently, the me, was quite a misunderstanding of what the situation really was, because I wasn't the one that was murdered. I'm not the one who committed suicide. I didn't betray my father. I didn't die of breast cancer, and I didn't die of cirrhosis, right? So I was, you know, I hadn't come to that conclusion at that point. But what happened was And I was still in New York when this happened. I saw a book, right? And it was I have collect Hindu books and Buddhist books and stuff like that. I'm interested in Buddhism and Hinduism and stuff and whatever. And I came across this book, which had what the title was the story of Kisagotami and the mustard seed. I don't know if any of you have ever heard this story. I'm sure if you are a practicing Buddhist, or not even a practicing Buddhist, if you are from a Buddhist country, or even a non-Buddhist country, you have a similar story. I'm sure this is the story that transgresses across all cultures in some way or some form. But anyway, I picked up this book and it was titled The Story of Kisagotami and the Mustard Seed. And it goes like this. All right. So there was a small village where a young woman by the name of Kisagotami was married, very much in love with her husband. Um, and her name was Kisagatomi. She was deeply in love with her husband, and having been married for a few years with her husband, she was lucky enough to have a son. And this son was the light of her life. And all she could do every single day was think about her son, love her son, do everything that she could for her son, and um, have a happy life, with her husband that she loved very much and her son that she loved very much, hoping to build a future. So one day, her beloved son becomes gravely ill. And despite all of her prayers and all of the caregiving that she can give him, her son passes away from some disease or from something. He passes away. And Kisagatomi, the mother whose adolescent son has just passed on, cannot accept that this happened. She's like, she can't believe it. How could this possibly happen? I love my son. I love my husband. I took care of them. He's not dead. He can't die. I need him. And so she picks up her adolescent son and she starts to carry him around the village. And she goes to everybody's doors. Please help me. Please help me. My son is sick. He's very sick. We need something, something to bring him back to life. Can you help me? Please help me bring my son back to life. Right? And everybody says, Auntie, or kiss him with the, what was I saying? Kiss a Gotami. We are really sorry. We are truly, truly sorry. But your son has passed away. Your adolescent son, her only son, has passed away. But she still doesn't believe it. She doesn't believe it. So she continues to carry her son in her arms throughout the village, looking for somebody who can bring her son back to life. She runs into an old man, very caring, wise old man. And the old man looks at her and sees her carrying her deceased son and sees the streams of tears coming down her face, the sorrow which you only know if you've seen a mother lose a child. And he says to her, I'm dreadfully sorry about your situation with your son. I truly am. But I do know of one man, and there's only one man who can help you with this situation that you have right now. And he says, go see the Buddha. And that doesn't mean the Buddha like Gautama Buddha. The Buddha, there are many Buddhas, right? Go see the Buddha. It's like a holy man. You know? Go see the Buddha at the Wat temple, and he will he will help you. So Kisagotami is like filled with joy at this moment. She's like, wow, really? Oh, I'm gonna be able to get to the temple, and the Buddha is gonna help me and bring my son back to life. You know? And so with new vigor, she picks up her son's body, adolescent body, wraps it in a shroud, and carries the body up the mountain to the temple. When she gets to the temple, she places her son's body on like a table of some sorts. And the Buddha is sitting there, and he sees the deceased son, he sees the mother, he sees that she has hope. But the Buddha doesn't reveal any emotion. He doesn't console her or anything. Instead, the Buddha says to her, yes, it is true that I can bring your son back to life. I can. I can bring your son back to life, but you'll have to follow these steps. And the mother's, Kisagatomi, the mother's like just brimming with joy. Please, please, Buddha, tell me, what do I have to do? I'll do it right now. Right? And he says, what you have to do is you have to go with your son, carry him, and you go to every single house in the village. And at each house that you stop by, you ask the housekeeper, the householder, for some mustard seeds. But there's one condition on getting these mustard seeds. These mustard seeds must be given to you from the householder from a house that has never experienced death. You know, nobody's died in that house. So she goes to the first house that she sees. She says, ma'am, please, may I please have some mustard seeds? I'm trying to, the Buddha said I can bring my son back to life if I have the mustard seeds. And can you just give me some mustard seeds? And she said, well, hold on a second. Did the Buddha ask you if you were going to get these mustard seeds from a house where, somebody had died? And she says, yes. Nobody's died in your house, right? And the woman looks at her sorrowfully and says, I'm very sorry, but my father-in-law passed away last week, and we had mustard seeds, but unfortunately, they won't be of any good to you because he passed away. So, undeterred, Kisagotami, the woman with her son, her adolescent son. They pack up, move on, go to the next house. They go to the next house and then knock on the door. Housekeeper comes to the door and she says, "Please, can you give me some mustard seeds? I, I just spoke with the Buddha, and the Buddha told me that if I can get mustard seeds from a house where nobody has died, that I can bring those mustard seeds to the Buddha, and the Buddha can bring my son back to life." Well, the woman at that house says, "I'm really sorry, but my brother passed away a couple of months ago, right? So you can have some mustard seeds, but I don't think it's going to help you because the Buddha said you needed mustard seeds from a house that had not experienced death." So Kisagotami wraps up her son in the shroud again, goes over to another house. Same story. Mustard seeds are offered to her, but there has been a death in the family. So she goes to every single house in the village asking for mustard seeds to try to find a house that had mustard seeds that had not experienced death. And she could not find one. There was not a single house in that village where there was a house with mustard seeds that had not experienced death. And so it was really at that point that she came to the realization. She came to the realization that death is inevitable. And you know how sympathetic and sorry for herself and sorry for her son, there was no way to bring him back. So the sun was setting that day, and her search was over, and she finally understood the Buddhist lesson and could deal with her personal grief that she felt so strong, and it was a singular grief, right? And she realized that it was, in fact, not just a singular grief, but it was a universal grief that we were all here and we we're all not alone. And in her suffering, death was natural and inevitable part of life. So Kisagotami returns to the Buddhist monastery. She is no longer carrying her son, which she had buried her son in the forest to give him a burial. Anyway, she then approaches the Buddha, and her eyes were no longer filled with the frantic hope that she had approached him with previously, in the attempt to bring back her son. And she before the Buddha, and she simply says, and I actually have to read this because I can't remember the whole story by heart, but she says, "My Lord, the mustard seeds are not to be, they are not to be found, but the lesson has been learned." So she said, so that's what she says. "My Lord, the mustard seeds are not to be found, but my lesson has been learned." Right? And the Buddha then took pity on her and taught her the way of Buddhism to bring her to a higher enlightened level of consciousness, and she devoted the rest of her life to her religion. But really, the end of the story is this, and this is something that has to be taken away, that this is a profound experience that she had learned, and that through this profound experience, she learned that nothing is impermanent, you know, and everything leads to more suffering. But by accepting the reality of suffering and that we all go through it, the reality of death and loss, she was able to look to look to look and go after her to release her grief and loss and find a kind of purpose and meaning in life. And that is the story of Kisagotami and the mustard seeds, which is a parable, which is a Hindu Buddhist parable, which I'm sure there are many variations written in many languages and cultures. But for me, at a time when when I read it, it was like right on cue, because when I had lost my first wife, my father, my mother, my brother had betrayed me, my best friend had died of cirrhosis. These events all happened within like a year and a half of each other, and I was a wreck. I was I was I was in league with the devil. I was drinking. I had no purpose in life. I had no joy. And so when I read this, it freed me. I felt relief because I realized at that moment that whatever personal grief that I might be going through, it is not that everybody goes through grief. Everybody has horrible stories of grief and sorrow and dukkha and things like this, which are the symptoms of life. And so from that day on, I was able to refocus and reanimate my mind into thinking about it rather than in a hateful, spiteful, terrible way, to realize that I needed to live on, and so does everybody else. If they can muster the courage, and they keep going. And that's that's what I did. And I think that today is a perfect example of the gratitude that I have to be able to walk and share this story with you guys. Free dawn. Unfortunately, I couldn't sleep. I got to get this walk on, and then maybe I'll take a nap or something like that. But to get this story on, because it's a story that stuck with me for a long time, and I think it has a lot of meanings. And there's a, like there's a you could take a lot away. You could take a lot away with it. I don't know if I said that properly, but you can get something out of that story. You know, so that is what I was waiting to tell all you guys about in the chat about that story. But it doesn't look like it's going to be a barn burner today. So hopefully since this will be recorded, maybe somebody in the future may find some solace or whatever listening to the story of Kisagotama, 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 and the loss of her son and the mustard seeds. So that's all I have to say about that. Other than that, I'm not feeling particularly energetic this morning, but I am going to keep going and doing what I have to do, which reminds me of something that I wanted to say actually at the very beginning of this outcast that we're doing. I call it an outcast because we're not inside an office with a microphone or anything like that. So we're outcasts. We're doing our outcast outside. If, people want to participate in the chat, ask questions, or not even ask questions, but tell tales or whatever, say whatever's on your mind. Be more than free to do so because we are in an outcast, not a podcast. Anyway, what I wanted to say was, and it comes back to that thing where I just said a moment ago. I wasn't feeling particularly energetic, and I wasn't sure if I could actually make this 7-kilometer walk, which I am going to make. I know now that I'll be able to do it. But it reminded me of a saying that I heard back in the 70s when I was a kid, and it didn't come from my house. It came from somebody else's house. And it goes something like this. Something like this. This is not exactly how it went, but it goes something like that. And what it is the man came back home from work, and me and his kid were playing, and his wife was in the kitchen cooking. And the man looks at me and his son playing on the floor, and he looks at us, and he says, "Listen, boys, you're old enough to understand something, and I'm going to tell you something that I don't think that you should ever forget." He says, "Do you know what the difference between a woman and a man and a punk and a hoe is?" We're young, Well, these are heavy words. I don't know. What's the difference between a woman and a man? Well, I kind of understand what that difference is. Punk and a hoe. Well, we know a punk refers to a guy who just doesn't, take care of his business. And a hoe is a woman who doesn't take care of her business either. So, yeah. So, kind of understood what he meant. And then he went on to say, you see, a man and a woman are people who get up every single day and do things all day long that they don't want to do. He really said this. They get up and they do things all day long that they don't want to do, but they do it because they have a sense of duty, and it puts the food on the table, pays the bills, and so on. And he said, a punk and a hoe are people who have no sense of duty, no respectability, and don't ever do anything they don't feel like doing. But I, as a man, he said, I'm speaking as him, do at least 50 things a day that I don't want to do. I never forgot that. And right now I'm doing something I don't want to do. Which is walk the rest of this fucking, excuse my language, walk the rest of this walk because my body's telling me just, you gotta take a little break on the side of the road, maybe even catch a few Z's and wake up, feel better, and continue on. But we're not going to do that. We're going to continue on doing what we don't necessarily want to do, which actually is I do want to do it, but you get the idea, basically. So that's the basic gist of it, you know. And it still stands true today. Absolutely stands true, right as rain today. Man, the difference between a man and a woman is that a man and a woman do 50 things a day that they don't want to do. And a punk and a hoe don't do a single thing they don't want to do at any point during the day. So I don't want to be a punk and I don't want to be a hoe, so I got to be a man. And my wife's a woman. She works harder than me. And sometimes I'm put to shame, but there are some physical and age limitations to my physical capabilities. Probably some mental. mental. Anyway, so yeah, man. I mean, that's really like the whole thing that I had prepared to talk about today was that, and unfortunately, it came an hour earlier than usual because most of the people in the chat for the Outcast show up around this time because this is the normal start time. So I kind of screwed up. I'm sorry if I started it an hour early. It's just I couldn't sleep. I had to get moving. Oh, I do have very good news. So I don't know if any of you guys have been looking at the channel or not, but if you have been looking at our channel, you'll see that we have these two adorable puppies, two female puppies. Their mother was poisoned. She had a litter of 5, so her mother died. 3 of the puppies were taken in by somebody else, and we got 2, which we nursed with goat's milk, and now they're a little over 4 weeks old. But in the 4 weeks that we had them, my wife decided to leave them in my office. My office isn't very big. It's probably about 5 feet by 5 feet or something like that. Big enough for me to sit down, have a desk, do my writing, whatever, stuff like that. And unfortunately for that, that doesn't leave an awful lot of room for airspace when puppies start poo-poo and pee-pee all over the place because they haven't been housebroken, you know? So that is good. So that is good news today that we have moved them to the storage room downstairs, of which, of course, they whined and cried as if, their lives depended on it, which is probably, nature, a natural thing for them to do. But thank goodness they're out of my office because that place was stinking to high heaven and it still stinks to high heaven. But we are in the process, or I am in the process, and my wife too, of aerating it and sterilizing it and making it a proper. Sorry for this. I just gotta put this stick away. I told you guys, I just bring a stick with me sometimes because there are a couple of dogs on this road, this particular road, that will kind of front on you. I never hit a dog or anything like that. There's no point. But if you take out a stick, like like this stick that I have here, they get the message pretty quickly. And what happens is they will not try. Ah, run so what? They will not try to take a nip out of your heels. So I'm just trying to get it back in because I like to be able to pull it out like a samurai sword. Make myself feel like Spider-Man or something like that. Oh, there we go. Make myself feel like Spider-Man or some sort of a superhero, even though I have zero intention of using it as a there it goes right there, as an instrument of obedience, unless a rabid one comes around, and they do have rabid dogs every now and then. If that happens, I'm definitely sticking that thing in his mouth to make sure that he stays away from me. Because I don't know if you guys know anything about rabies or anything like that. But let me tell you, I do know something about rabies. And here's the thing I do know about rabies. Rabies is more rampant in rural areas, right? Obviously, more animals and stuff like that. But there is no cure for rabies in humans. So if a human contracts rabies, it's fatal, right? And it's actually 100% fatal. But rabies, this is the guy that I'm talking about. Watch this. Watch this. Watch this. He gets close. I'm gonna pull a stick out and watch him jet. Watch him jet. Jet, boy. Look at him jet. Too smart. Anyway, so anyway, if you do get rabies, the only way to survive it is like within the first week of being bitten by a rabid animal. And what you have to do is you have to go every single day and get these really horrible shots in your stomach to counteract the rabid virus. But if you don't do that, the rabid virus will take you over. So the rabid virus will take you over. And if you really are interested, just go to YouTube and hit up humans with rabies. And I guarantee you, the next time you're walking down a country road and you see some sort of animals, you'll be carrying a stick too, because it is not a nice way to go out at all. And there's no cure. So, that being said, that's kind of why I carry the stick. I don't really carry the stick for rabies because I haven't seen a rabid animal around here in a long time. Hopefully, never will again. But sometimes you do have dogs that are chasing female dogs, and if they're a little bit bigger than the other dogs, sometimes they feel like you might be a threat to the mating process with their dog or something like that, and they'll come at you. And all you gotta do is wave a stick in front of them, because while I might not hit a dog with the stick, I guarantee you that the local women who carry sticks for dogs, they train those dogs quickly. Just like babies need to be spanked to be disciplined. Women will take the twig, take that switch to that baby dog's butt so hard, so fast, they'll be running from the switch from forever. So, and that's why I carry these sticks sometimes. I've never been bitten in the, like I say, sometimes I say I've been in Thailand for 25 years. So that's the amount of time that I've actually spent here. But I came to Thailand over 30 years ago. So I have spent some time outside of Thailand. But we are at a very special point in our destination journey this morning. We're very nearly at our special point of our destination, which we always take a moment to give thanks and gratitude to the Almighty, whoever it is or whatever it is, but to appreciate nature in all of its magnificence. So we do have a little vista right here. Scott74, good morning. How you doing, brother? Sorry, I showed up an hour early, and I told a story about Kisagotami and the mustard seeds, which I don't think you heard, but it's at the beginning of the story. It's just too long of a story for me to repeat. But you are in time, obviously, to share this moment of gratitude with everybody else, to see this beautiful moment where we can see the rice field and the trees and the surrounding houses and the beautiful sky. And that is facing west. And if you haven't seen this view on this Outcast before, Outcast number 4, although we have many, many more Outcasts previously to this, it is our way of giving thanks and gratitude to it. And then the little footnote is we're looking west, right? So that's why you don't see any sun rising up, because the sun rises in the east, sets in the west, right? And if you just kept walking straight as a crow flies this way, you would end up in Myanmar. A good walk across a couple of mountain ranges, end up in Myanmar. Don't suggest you go there. There's a pretty vicious civil war going on there right now, and and then as you kept walking, you'd end up in the Indian Ocean, and maybe on the if you're a good swimmer, you'd end up in the Seychelles or Madagascar or the east coast of Africa. And being that we are early today, the star of our show looks like he's going to make an appearance today. I think we will be blessed. Maybe we need to move a little bit further over this way. Oh yeah, there he is, or she, or it. Oh yeah, you got that? You all can see that? Wow, isn't that amazing? That is really something to give thanks to. And at this point, I will say, Jah Rastafari, I and I, and that is, may Bob Marley one day be uh, beatified and canonized as a saint for bringing more joy and happiness to anybody on this planet uh, that I can think of. It's certainly more well known than a saint by the name of Mother Teresa, who I'm not knocking her or anything like that, but I'm pretty sure by this time, if you asked 100 people, maybe 3 of them would be able to tell you who Mother Teresa was, and 90 would be able to tell you who Bob Marley was. And he should be a saint. He's a Christian, you know. Rastafari is Christian religion. And where is the Ark of the Covenant supposedly buried? It's buried in Ethiopia, hidden by devout Christians, or that's the theory. So, Bob Marley, a Christian who performed a miracle on this planet and provided happiness to billions of people, and still is, should be beatified and canonized and made a saint. Anyway, enough of that said. We do happen to be on the last probably 20% of the walk, which was going on. Scott, I said earlier today, I don't know if you heard this part or not, but I said when I was a kid, I was over at my friend's house, right, and his mom was cooking dinner, and me and the kid were playing on the floor, and the father, he had some sort of working man's job, mechanic or something like that. I don't know what he did, but anyway, we were like 5, 6, 7 years old or something like that. And he looks at us and he says, "Kids, you're old enough to understand something that I'm about to tell you. What I'm about to tell you, you better remember for the rest of your life. Because if you do remember this, you're going to learn a very valuable lesson." And we're all excited. We're like, "Oh man, he's going to tell us something that's really like, I mean, this is going to be this. He's got our attention." And he says, He says, I'm a man and my wife is a woman. And do you know what the difference is between a woman and a man and a hoe and a punk? Start thinking, a little bit too young to put it all together. And he then, waits, a little dramatic pause, waits, and he says, a man and a woman are people who do things every single day that they don't want to do. 50 things or 100 things every single day. They go out and they do things that they do not want to do. And the difference between a man and a woman and a punk and a hoe is that a punk and a hoe never go out and do anything they don't want to do. I never forgot that. Stayed with me. And it was a good lesson because I take it since that day, 50 years ago, taking it to heart. And every single day, I'm out there. I'm doing something I don't want to do. And I know you guys are too. So God bless you all. God bless everybody who's out there doing things that they don't want to do. You know what I'm saying? God bless everybody. Our days are numbered. We're getting towards the end of the game. Let's make the most of it and then cherish every moment and do what we can to improve ourselves, but also perform our duty as part of the Homo sapien genus or species or whatever you want to call it. And that is to pass on whatever little pieces of knowledge nuggets of knowledge that we get through our years of existence in hopes that our species can survive longer in a very, very violent and very unsure world. And I don't mean just by man-made things. I mean, the plethora of other possibilities is just frightening. Too frightening to think of at the moment. But yeah, so that's the whole point of it, is to as young parents, young good parents, I should say. There are a lot of young bad parents, but young good parents learn that lesson and exercise that lesson religiously. And that is the passing on knowledge, information, wisdom, humility, sacrifice, and things like that. And Scott, if you see me putting that stick in my bag, that's my stick that I carry with me sometimes, not always, but there's on this road, there's been a couple of two dogs who've kind of didn't really want to listen to what I had to give them verbal commands and stuff like that. I'm not going to hit them. I'm definitely not going to hit the dog. But when I take that stick out of its sheath, they understand, because every Thai dog on these streets here, some Thai woman had a little stick. Didn't even have to be a big stick. Smacked the shit out of that dog. And they know when they see that stick, they say, time to behave. It's a persuader, exactly. Yeah, it's just a persuader. I would never hit a dog with a stick. First of all, you're not going to do shit to it with that kind of a stick. I mean, you'd have to have like some type of ammunition, and that's not my MO anyway. I did mention that if I did run into a rabid dog, though, which I have seen rabid dogs, not here, but down south, south and southern Thailand, and you can tell when you see a rabid dog. And if that sucker bites you, you're in deep shit because you only have a limited amount of time to get a series of 7 shots into your abdomen to fight against rabies. And if you're not fast enough, rabies is fatal, incurable, and is a horrific death. And if you want to find out any more about it, I won't describe it. Just look on YouTube and look at rabies in humans. And I guarantee you, if you're walking down a country road, you'll probably be carrying a stick too. Not one of the better ways, not one of the preferred ways. Definitely would rather be uh, death by firing squad is definitely a little bit higher up on my list than rabies. Anyway, yeah, you can look it up, check it out. We get it up there. We got to see a market up there. I have an order to pick up some chicken, some boiled chicken. Um, Uncle Jerry, the man who lives below us, wants some boiled chicken to give to his dog. Uh, Hopefully, he'll see some and get it for him. But I'll say this: unfortunately, he gave me the biggest denomination note that they have in Thailand, which is 1,000 note. And going to these markets in order to buy two, I think they cost 20 baht a piece. To buy two 20 baht pieces of chicken, I might have to take all the change that they have, and then they're screwed and can't give change to other people. So if that is the case, I will tell Uncle Willie that they just didn't have any chicken, because I'm not going to inconvenience these people because he wants to get some chicken to feed to his dog who already has food. Anyway, so Scott, what you been up to? Anything interesting? Sorry for the late start. I had to get the late start going because, like I said, I was having trouble sleeping, and I think that you heard the story about. I was taking sertraline Zoloft tablets, which were like sertraline inhibitors and stuff like that, which like mess with your brain. So like I stopped them, and what was happening was I was having like waves of emotion, and while I was having those waves of emotion, when I went to sleep, it was like having an LSD trip because I was like cognizant of where I was, but it was so real, because like the neurons and stuff like that in my brain were firing. Uh, Scott says lately, I mainly ride my bike a lot, enjoying the weather while it's warm. I've been on them for depression. Yeah, that's the thing. You know, I understand taking them for depression, but I'm also a believer in neuroplasticity. And I honestly believe that we can conquer depression through faith in spirituality, whatever it may be, so long as it is in Islam. And faith and spirituality, faith in our brains, science, and neuroplasticity, good thoughts, meditation, and these types of things. Um, and that's why I chose to get off of the Zoloft. If I do have like a manic episode or something like that, I will definitely start taking them again. But so far, so smooth. Um, so far, so smooth. Nothing's happened to set me off or anything like that. And I really wouldn't got set off by anything anyway. I wasn't set off when I went to the hospital last week. Like I told you, I only went to the hospital because I was trying to get a free check so I can move back to Thailand. Yeah, yeah, man. Exercise is amazing. Yes, sir. That's where it's at. You keep the body in good shape. You're gonna keep your brain in good shape. That's definitely something to be thought about. Oh yeah, here they go. That's what I'm looking for. Hello, Arun Suwat do pal. Oh, Paul, อยากกินไก่อันนี้ไก่ต้มใช่ไหมอันนี้ไก่อะไรอ๋อทำไมมันสีม่วงสีตำอ๋อโอเคซื้อสองขอบคุณมากยาย. Have you heard of the carnivore diet? It helps reverse a lot too. I've heard of the carnivore diet, but then again, I am a little adverse to the carnivore diet. Uh, Not because I'm a full vegetarian. It's just because I wish I was a vegetarian, but I'm not a vegetarian. You see, because I'm going to buy these pork rinds, and I'm going to eat them and enjoy them, and they're going to be absolutely delicious, and I'm going to have a good time. So, ah, what you got, man? Dr. Sean Baker, MD YouTube channel. I'll definitely will check it out. But I'm sure it's a thing. Biologically, I'm sure it's a thing too. I mean, after all, we had to survive on meat, hunter gatherers for quite a long time. So I'm not knocking anything. Oh, we got a packed house today. We have a packed house today. A lot of people. Sparked Camille and got Moo. Everything online model. What I want to do is, yeah, Sean Baker. I definitely will check it out. 100%. I checked out the Mandrake. I'll definitely gonna check that out too. But Arun Swapi. Yaksi. Ahan dua chow พัว Panria ผม2 ทุ่มนะอาหารหน่วยครับอาหารเช้ามีไหมครับอาหารเช้าเหนืออาหารเหนือโอเค2 ทุ่มได้ไหมครับผมไม่กิน Panria กินลูกสาวยายพันธุ์ลูกสาวยายพันธุ์โอเค So we're getting some North food from my wife because she likes to eat the North food. I'm not a fan of the North food, but I eat pork rinds and there's Scott 74. By the way, if you watch YouTube, have you seen those ridiculous adverts for? I started Tai Chi when I was 58 years old. Look at me now. My doctor asks me, how do I keep in such good shape? Like, yeah, พอดีพอแล้วครับมีอาหารชอบไหมเอา2 ทุ่มผมไม่รู้เขากินอะไรไม่รู้เพราะว่าผมไม่เป็นคนนัว
boy, what do you know? Somebody about you know. But I did hear something funny about. I did hear something funny about. Remember that guy who did the video about he did a movie about surviving on McDonald's for a year or Burger King. You know he died at the age of like 55 of heart disease. I found that out a few months ago. I thought that was pretty amazing. Well, I mean, it's not that amazing when you think about it, but it is. Yeah, Supersize Me. Yeah, that guy. Yeah, he died at like 55, I think it was. I mean, come on, man. Where's the lawsuit? Somebody's got to get paid. And you would have figured that he made enough money with that movie that he could have gotten some sort of good treatment or something like that. That movie killed him. Supersized Me. He sacrificed his life to inform people not to eat that processed junk. You like Matt Goggins? Matt Goggins, is that his name? That guy's like he's a beast. Matt Goggins, I like Matt Goggins. David Goggins, yeah, David Goggins. I didn't like the whole Sean Strickland, David Goggins sort of, that guy, the ultra marathon runner and stuff like that, Navy SEAL or whatever. I wasn't really into the whole Sean Strickland, David Goggins type of. Oh, a couple of my people. Nej, so I wasn't into like that whole thing about like the whole fight, the whole Sean Strickland and David Goggins having a fight or whatever. Number one is I don't believe that David Goggins would win that fight because he's not a mixed martial. I mean, he is like a Navy SEAL and stuff like that, but I think that he's considerably older than Sean Strickland, and I think that Sean Strickland is like เช็คดูก่อนซื้ออะไรนี่บีชอบไหมอ๋อ yeah ซื้อ2 กล่องกล่องเดียวอะไรนี่อ้าวอาหารนัวนะอาหารนัวสบายดีหรือเปล่า Oh, okay. Okay. So, get my uh, you know. Yeah, no, yeah, I mean the fighting and stuff like that, they put themselves their lives on the line and stuff like that, whatever. I have to say that I'm a semi fan of combat sports. And it has to do with that I grew up in the time of Mike Tyson and Muhammad Ali, George Foreman, and I mean that was like something else. And then you had for me the greatest boxing things of all times was Tommy Hearns and Marvin Hagler. Goggins' backstory: he's been through hell and he's mentally tough. Not too cool what Strickland was throwing. What was going on about. Yeah. Foreman was a beast. Unfortunately, he passed on a couple months ago. Uh, but and unfortunately for Foreman, remember like the rumble in the jungle and stuff like that. They were shouting in Zairian or whatever, kill him, because everybody was in favor of Muhammad Ali and stuff like that. And it turned out like George Foreman was like the nicest guy you could possibly, you know, he was the nicest guy. He never said a bad word about anybody. But he he had some power, and then he became a minister and started selling them Foreman grills and whatnot. Anyway, yeah, rest in peace, George Foreman. What a wonderful human being. But yeah, it definitely wasn't cool what Sean Strickland was saying about David Goggins. It was like totally out of his realm. He had no reason to say these things about David Goggins. It was just a really sad attempt on a very low IQ person by the name of Sean Strickland trying to promote himself into the media. And so the low, the easiest thing that he could thought that he could grab onto was David Goggins. And like I said, I don't think David Goggins would win a fight with him in the ring. But I guarantee you, if they ran a 135-mile race, David Goggins would beat him by a couple of days. Or maybe even Strickland might not even be able to finish the race. He'd be in the hospital. There'd be an ambulance. Oh no, and Sean Strickland, he made it past the 27th mile. And David Goggins, he's back at the finish line. He only made it past the 27th mile. Yeah, no, they had to take him away in the ambulance. You know, but yeah. But David Goggins has an ego of his own as well, I guess. So he felt like he had to fire back and stuff like that. My personal take on that is, I think unless there was some sort of money play in the background we didn't know about, that David Goggins should have just ignored him, like not even given them the time of day, because they're not even in the spectrum of like humanity. Like I don't even consider them like like anywhere near on the same level of humanity. You know, you have Sean Strickland, who's like basically a Neanderthal brute, and then you have David Goggins, who's an accomplished academic athlete. You know, you know what I mean. So if I kind of wanted David Goggins to just totally ignore him, but that didn't happen, and they didn't get into the ring as far as I know. So that's good too. So maybe they made some money off of it. Who knows? I don't know. But that shit would be funny. You know that race that I'm talking about, right? They go on that race. Scott74 says, "I'd like to see Strickland take on Hell Week. Hell Week at Paris Island. I went to boot camp, but I didn't go. I didn't go for the Marines though. I went to Great Lakes, 1994. Or Hell Week is the race. Is that the name of the race that they have, where they run like 135 miles or something like that? I don't know. Either one. I think that Strickland would make it through uh, USMC boot camp. I'm pretty sure of it. He's certainly the mental framework, shall we say, to be inducted in there, because they're just waiting for him. Yeah. That race, yeah, that one, like they run over like the Rocky Mountains or whatever they do. I don't know. That's what I was saying. But like, if they wanted to do the race, I don't think Strickland would have made it past mile 27 by the time Goggins would have finished the race, and Goggins would have gotten a phone call and said, "Well, Strickland gave up at mile 27, and he's been sent to the ICU." But I think for Navy SEAL, I believe, unless Sean Strickland's IQ is lower than I think it is, I think that he would. I think that he would. I think he could pass Navy SEAL. I think so. I think he could. Being just to be fair, I'm not a fan. I'm definitely not a Sean Strickland fan. I like David Goggins.
I'm not like a fanboy, but I like him. But I do think that I, you know, I think that Sean Strickland could. I think that he could pass for Navy SEAL. I remember when I was in boot camp in Great Lakes, Illinois, 1994, when they came in, like they like you go through a series uh, of corrals, basically. Like a whole bunch of you get corralled into one area and then this area, that area, and then they come and so, Arun Suapata! They corral you and stuff like that, and then they start like they even ask you because the one room I was in was these guys came in, who wants to be a Navy SEAL, and I did not raise my hand, and I didn't raise my hand because I didn't even want to be in the Navy, but there were a bunch of guys who raised their hand, and I can't remember. Maybe one of them was picked to continue on, like past the interview room. Maybe one. I'm not sure. Can't remember. It's a long time ago. The simulated drowning test. Well, I think that he could. I'm telling you, I think that Sean Strickland could. I don't know. Did you, Scott? Are you? Did you sign the motherfucking contract? And if you know what I mean by that, you know what I'm talking about. Are you a former Marine? Once a Marine, always a Marine. The simulated drowning test. I thought I did the simulated drowning test last week. I took 10 Xanaxes and I took a bath. I didn't think I was going to make it out. I actually know somebody who died from that. Pretty girl, too. Oh, when she was a teenager. She was rich, pretty, and everything. And I was talking to her sisters just recently. When I say just recently, it could be like 2, 3 years ago. And yeah, she told me, uh, what was her name? Stacy Zelnick. I said, how's your sister Stacy? I always wanted to nail your sister, is what I told her. I said, I always wanted to nail your sister Stacy, right? And she said, oh, yeah, everybody did, you know, but she was a bitch. I said, what do you mean she was a bitch? She was a bitch, blah, blah, blah. Well, whatever happened to her? Oh, she died like 3 years ago. She took Xanax and went in the tub and drowned. That's not very friendly. But who knows? Who knows what the backstory there is? Whatever. Hey, Stacy Zelnick, rest in peace. And if we can go back to those days when you could bounce quarters off our asses, I wouldn't have mind trying to bounce one off of hers. And she was kind of a bitch. That's what I liked about it too, because like you just knew, like if you were lucky enough, she, never mind. I don't want to get too graphic. She was pretty. She was, she was who she was, as we all are. And for people perceive us in all sorts of lights and ways and perceptions and all like that, which I will give you a very short story, being that we are at the end of the road for today, but I will give you a very short story. So, in Thailand, there are sometimes like extradition problems, like extraditing people to the United States or other countries for crimes. Anyway, there was a story that came out in the 70s, and this guy
it was a Westerner. I forget what country it was. Had become a Buddhist monk, and he was doing all these good deeds. He'd been a Buddhist monk for like 20 years or something like that. He's doing his monk duties and whatever. Anyway, one day, Interpol shows up at the temple and says, so and so, we want him to come with us. And the deacon, I think they call them deacons. No, I don't think they call them deacons. They call them something else. I forget the name of it. Whatever. The head of the Wat says, "Well, why do you want to take my good monk away from me? He's an ordained monk." And Interpol says he murdered somebody 25, 30 years ago. And the monk looked at the arresting officers, the officers who had arrived at the Wat. By the way, I'll fill you in. They're not allowed to arrest anybody inside of the Wat. Like, but that's the law here. So the the deacon or high priest or whatever it is of the Wat said, well, he's been such a good monk here for all the time that we've known him. We don't know him like that. So therefore, whatever you're saying doesn't exist, and we will not turn him over to you. And the end of the story was the guy remained a monk for the rest of his life and was not extradited for whatever crime he may or may not have committed. I don't know the full details or the grisly details or the non-grisly details. It could have been a DWI. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? I have no idea what the story is. But I do know the story is that he had proved himself in 25 years not to commit crimes and work for humanity and give his life up to become a Buddhist monk. And the philosophy of Buddhism is that you are that people are how you perceive them and how you meet them, and that this man had been doing this for 25 years or so, and that in the eyes of the leader of this monastery, Arun Sawat Pikyo, uh, that they weren't going to let him go. And that's all I know about that story. I don't know what happened. I don't know if they got him. I don't know what happened. It's starting to rain here. It's gonna be cats and dogs. I mean, he could have been one of the war crimes in Vietnam. Whatever. Who knows? I have no idea. But anyway, that's just a little story that I heard. It was starting to rain cats and dogs. Thankfully, we're underneath the tree right now, but I've got to whip out my key to open up the door. So at this point, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody who are citizens of this planet Earth, we call our home, and on which we must all live together for the time being, I wish you all a good morning, a good afternoon, and a good